Welcome to the Urban Herald. As part of the team here, our mission is always to try and find some clarity in all the complexity out there. And right now, there's probably no tool that's more complex or more misunderstood than generative AI.
Absolutely.
Every single day, you have millions of people using these incredibly powerful systems, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, you name it. They're asking them mission-critical questions, and this is the crazy part, without any kind of check. They're just trusting the output completely.
It's become this global phenomenon of what you could call digital negligence. People are effectively taking the keys to a brand new car, putting on a blindfold, hitting the gas, and just trusting that the GPS is not only going to tell them where to go, but actually do the driving for them.
Right.
That level of blind trust is, it's completely unsustainable.
And it hits the core problem right on the head. We're seeing this massive operational trust deficit. People are interacting with these AIs as if they're infallible.
Yeah.
Like there's some perfect library or a research oracle.
But they're not.
They aren't. At their core, they're probabilistic engines.
Right.
They're making these incredibly sophisticated statistical guesses about what the next word should be. The result can be amazing, but that catastrophic risk of error, it's always there. And most users just aren't accounting for it.
And that reality really defines the mission of this deep dive for you, our listener. We, as the team at the Urban Herald, we need to give you the essential guide. You know, how to cut through all the hype and really master the mechanics of using AI effectively and, just as importantly, safely.
The key shift is realizing it's not an oracle.
Exactly. It's a thinking partner, a very powerful one, but one that demands constant, active human oversight. If you really want to leverage these tools, you have to learn to treat them like a GPS.
So GPS, not an autopilot.
Precisely. A system that augments and informs your journey, but doesn't replace your own agency entirely.
So today, we're going to unpack the hard, cold data on error rates that, frankly, mandates this caution. We'll really explore that GPS analogy as a foundational mindset. And then, most critically, we are going to walk you through a specific, actionable strategy. We call it our defensive AI framework, which is really your essential guide to safety and responsibility in this new age.
Let's start the very beginning with the most fundamental danger that forces all this caution, the reality of AI hallucinations.
Okay, let's unpack that term hallucination. It gets thrown around a lot, but I think if we're going to use this technology well, we need a precise definition.
Right. A hallucination is not a system crash. It's not a bug. It's when the AI generates information, a fact, a citation, a date, a number, that sounds completely plausible. It often adopts this really authoritative tone, but it's entirely fabricated. You just can't source it back to any verifiable data.
And the most critical thing to grasp is that this isn't a glitch that's going to get patched out someday.
No, not at all. It is fundamentally inherent to the architecture of how these large language models work.
So it's the engine working exactly as designed. That's why it's so hard to eliminate. But how is that different from, say, a human making a mistake or misremembering a fact?
That's a vital distinction. ChatGPT doesn't have knowledge in the human sense. It has no memory, no comprehension, no commitment to what's actually true.
It's just patterns.
It's all statistical pattern recognition. It's analyzed trillions of words and their relationships. So when you ask it a question, it's just predicting the statistically most likely sequence of the next words to form a coherent, fluent response.
So sometimes that lines up perfectly with reality.
Sometimes it does, but other times the model optimizes for fluency and confidence. It favors a plausible-sounding sentence that is just utterly beautifully false. The system is built for language flow, not for empirical truth.
And once you accept that it's optimized for fluency over truth, the data becomes, well, unavoidable. We have a look at the numbers. The analysis we put together for the Urban Herald on these error rates is genuinely sobering.
It really is. We need to move past the funny anecdotes of AI mistakes and look at the actual benchmarks.
Okay, so according to the latest benchmarking studies from 2025, even the best, most highly tuned models, like GPT-4o, still hallucinate about 1.5% of the time on general knowledge tasks.
And 1.5% might sound small, like a minor risk.
It sounds tiny, but you have to put that in context for daily use. If you're integrating this into your professional workflow, relying on it for 50 little micro tasks a day, that translates to dozens of pieces of false information landing on your desk every single week. Even a 1% error rate means you cannot trust any single piece of information without checking it.
That baseline is just too high for blind faith.
Exactly.
And we have to stress that 1.5% is the best case scenario. That's for simple, general, factual recall. The error rate, it just skyrockets based on the complexity of the task you give the AI.
This is where it gets really instructive, especially for professionals and researchers. When you test these models on complex tasks, like, say, a systematic review that needs to synthesize multiple sources or generating academic references,
That's the big
the hallucination rates just went through the roof.
And that's the real danger zone, isn't it? Because so many users turn to AI for exactly those tedious, structured tasks like citation generation. They expect it to be a perfect little indexer.
But it's not. The numbers here are astounding. They demand that verification becomes non-negotiable. In one big, peer-reviewed study focused specifically on generating academic references, GPT-3.5 hallucinated in 39.6% of its citations.
Almost 4 out of every 10.
Think about that. Almost 4 in 10 citations were completely made up, pointing to papers that don't exist, authors who didn't write them, journals that never published them. Even the much-improved GPT-4 still hit a 28.6% hallucination rate.
Still more than 1 in 4.
And then there was one competitor model, Bard, which is now Gemini. It showed a catastrophic 91.4% hallucination rate on academic references.
That 91.4% figure, I mean, it's not just a statistical outlier, it's a profound cautionary tale. It means if you delegate that task to that system, you are almost guaranteed to commit professional misconduct or academic fraud.
Because it's just generating fiction.
Complete fiction.
Right.
It shows that if the task demands really specific, verifiable data that's kind of sparse in the general training material, the systems fail. And they fail dramatically.
And it's not just citations. We rely on these models for reasoning. When they tested newer, reasoning-focused models on complex logical questions, researchers found hallucination rates climbed way up, landing somewhere between 33% and 79%.
So when the model has to do more than just recall something, when it has to synthesize multiple steps, the chance of an error just multiplies.
Right.
Now, we should pause here and add some necessary context. It's not all doom and gloom. The progress has been incredible.
True.
The data shows significant rapid improvement. Hallucination rates have dropped from an average of, 21.8% in 2021 down to as low as 0.7% in 2025 for the absolute best models.
A 96% drop in 4 years is a staggering technological achievement. So if we see that progress, why should we dedicate so much of our time to manual verification? Isn't that, just inefficient if the system is getting close to perfect?
That is exactly the right question for a sophisticated user to ask, and the answer is really in the nature of the error. Improvement does not mean perfection. Think of it this way. If your car had a 99.3% chance of stopping when you hit the brakes, you still wouldn't drive without paying attention, right?
Of course not.
That 0.7% error rate, while tiny, still means regular intermittent failures if you use the tool a lot. And crucially, those failures tend to happen in those high-stakes, low-data environments, exactly where human judgment is most critical.
So even as the models get better on paper, the fundamental reality doesn't change. Every single percentage point of error means people are reading false information presented as fact. The need for verification remains.
Exactly. Understanding that statistical reality is the first step toward a healthier, more productive relationship with AI. If you know the system is guaranteed to fail a small but critical percentage of the time, then verification isn't a redundancy anymore.
It becomes an essential cost of doing business.
It's an irreducible cost of using the tool responsibly.
And this brings us perfectly to the foundational mindset shift we advocate for here at the Urban Herald, the GPS analogy. This mental model is the essential tool for managing that statistical risk we've just laid out.
The GPS analogy works so well because fundamentally both tools do the same thing. They augment human decision-making by processing massive amounts of data a person can't manage alone. But, and this is the critical part, both tools absolutely require human override, contextual awareness, and judgment.
So let's break down the rules of the road for the GPS. You use it because it can see the whole road network. It can see traffic and calculates routes instantly.
Yeah.
But you don't follow its instructions blindly. If it says turn left now, but you see a giant do not enter sign, or the road is clearly flooded.
You override it.
You override it. The digital instruction is subservient to the real-world reality you can see with your own eyes.
And that's precisely how AI should function in your workflow. The AI shines because it can do things you can't do from the ground level. Summarize 20 reports in seconds, brainstorm 100 ideas in 30 seconds, reformat data.
It's handling the heavy lifting.
It's handling the grunt work, the traffic alerts and route suggestions. It augments your cognitive capacity. It doesn't replace it.
You delegate the processing, but you have to reserve your human judgment for the final verification.
And the analogy extends powerfully to the idea of expertise. We see this with drivers. Even a pro driver on a familiar route still uses GPS, right? Just to check for unexpected traffic or road closures. When you're an expert in a field, you use ChatGPT to speed things up, knowing the map of your domain so well that you instantly spot when the AI takes a detour into fiction.
Can you give us a deeper scenario of that? The expert spotting the error versus a novice just missing it completely.
Sure. Imagine a pharmaceutical researcher using AI to synthesize clinical trial results. If the AI just makes up a trial ID number or misrepresents the findings of a study,
The researcher, the expert driver, will see that immediately.
instantly, they'll recognize the citation is wrong or the summary contradicts what they know about that drug. They catch the error. But a non-expert, maybe an intern or a journalist new to the field, asking the exact same question to the exact same system, they don't have that internal map.
They won't have a chance. The fabricated trial ID will look plausible, authoritative.
Yeah.
It's exponentially more dangerous for them.
That expertise gap is paramount. And we've seen this pattern with technology over and over. Remember early GPS systems? They were notorious for having outdated maps, sending you down roads that didn't exist anymore.
All right, we all learned you had to pay attention to the actual road signs.
And that same evolution makes modern AI both more useful and more treacherous. Early language models. Their failures were obvious. They'd make weird grammatical mistakes or give bizarre answers. Now, systems like GPT-4o produce output that's so refined, so sophisticated, that the errors just blend seamlessly with the accurate information.
It's the difference between a GPS telling you to turn into a lake, which is an obvious failure, and an AI weaving 3 plausible-sounding but completely fake citations into an otherwise perfect 5,000-word financial analysis.
The latter is so much harder to catch.
The sophistication is the danger.
It inspires a higher degree of trust than the system has earned. So the non-negotiable principle, the takeaway from the GPS analogy, is this. The human must always remain the expert driver. The tool handles the data crunching, it generates potential paths, but the responsibility for the final destination and the truth of the content rests entirely with you.
And yet most people are adopting this autopilot mindset, which leads us to what we call the blindfolded problem. It's more than just ignoring the stats. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of what the system even is.
That's the core of it. Users mistake it for a search engine, a knowledge base, a research assistant that's optimized for truth.
Which it isn't.
It's a language prediction machine optimized for fluency. Its highest priority is sounding right, not being right. And that capability feels so much like real knowledge that people just stop questioning it.
And here we hit the deep human error.
Yeah.
Anthropomorphization. We attribute human-like understanding and a commitment to truth to a system that only recognizes patterns. We see the perfect prose, the confident tone, and we assume that confidence must equal accuracy.
And they read the output, they think, wow, that sounds authoritative. And then, and this is the crucial part, they move on. No verification. Because it satisfied their aesthetic expectation of what an accurate answer should look like.
And the consequences of this overtrust are severe and measurable, especially in sensitive areas. We looked at studies in specialized medical fields where they tested ChatGPT's ability to diagnose rare diseases.
And the error rates?
They jumped to a staggering 83%.
83%. And in high-stakes professional work like complex legal analysis, accuracy often drops to 50% or lower. It's basically a coin toss.
But the truly scary part wasn't just the high error rate, it was the user confidence. In those high-error tasks, the users reported feeling highly confident in the wrong results, which confirms the critical danger. The most dangerous AI error is the plausible, sophisticated lie told with absolute confidence, especially when the user doesn't have the expertise to challenge it.
And this confidence problem is systemic. It's reinforced by the entire user experience.
Tell us more about that design trap.
Well, just look at the output. It's perfectly formatted. It uses sophisticated vocabulary, perfect grammar. It almost never hedges or admits uncertainty.
And when it does, it's that boilerplate, I am a large language model disclaimer.
Right, which everyone just ignores. The system is structurally trained to inspire trust and authority through its fluency.
How does that contrast with a real human expert, say, in medicine or law?
A human expert, when they're facing complexity, they actively use qualification and hedging. A cardiologist might say, based on these symptoms, I lean toward X, but we absolutely have to run tests to rule out Y.
Or a lawyer will say, the precedent suggests this, but you need to be aware that courts in this circuit have been ruling differently lately.
Those qualifications aren't signs of weakness. They're signals of judgment, of ethical responsibility. They communicate the precise limits of what is known.
Which the AI doesn't do.
AI systems are optimized for fluency, and fluency inherently favors commitment over what you might call epistemic humility. Hesitation makes text feel choppy, less authoritative, so the models learn to just commit to an answer even when that commitment is completely baseless.
And that creates a psychological trap. The more confidently the AI states something false, the more likely the human is to believe it without checking.
And this is why the autopilot danger is so acute. When you completely surrender to the AI, you lose the chance to apply your own judgment and catch the error until it's too late.
To avoid that, we have to deliberately adopt a different posture. And that's the cornerstone of our strategy, the defensive AI framework.
This is a crucial set of practices. It's like defensive driving, but for safe and highly effective AI usage.
Okay, let's dive into the first part of the framework, which is all about how we interact with the system, starting with our prompts.
Step 1. Be extremely specific with your prompts. This is probably the easiest thing you can do for an immediate, tangible improvement, because the garbage in, garbage out principle applies here with brutal efficiency.
Right. If I ask it to tell me about climate policy, I'm basically inviting a vague, generalized response. It's like telling the GPS to take me somewhere nice.
Precisely. A vague prompt gives the probabilistic engine too much room to roam. It gravitates toward generalizations, common knowledge, or even confident fabrications just because the boundaries are too wide.
So contrast that. Give us an example of an effective, really precise prompt.
An effective prompt would be something like, explain 5 specific, actionable digital marketing strategies for small e-commerce businesses that sell sustainable clothing to a Gen Z audience in the US, emphasizing platforms where they spend most of their time. And limit the response to a professional, bulleted format of exactly 400 words, using only sources published after January 2024.
The difference is night and day. And that saves so much time and energy on the back end in the verification and editing process. We have hard data on this. Marketing agencies told us they reduced editing time by over 50% just by enforcing rules for precise prompting.
And we saw a legal services firm cut revision time by 40% on initial drafts just by consistently specifying the jurisdiction, word limits, tone, and the exact statutes to reference.
Specificity acts like a guardrail.
It does. It pushes the model toward the edges of its training data where accuracy often lives, and away from the center of generalization where errors tend to multiply. A key part of being specific is also using what's called chain of thought prompting.
This is basically asking the AI to show its work.
Exactly. Instead of just asking for the final answer, you ask the AI to walk through the problem step by step, to explain its reasoning, or to consider counter-arguments.
So instead of what causes a recession,
You'd say, first, explain the relationship between rising interest rates and consumer spending. Second, outline 2 monetary policy tools the Fed uses to fight inflation. And third, identify the main criticisms of using those tools from a supply-side economic perspective.
that forces it to engage with the complexities sequentially. You're slowing it down, and in that process, you're creating a visible chain of logic.
And if it makes a logical leap or relies on a bad assumption, you can spot the error in the reasoning chain before it gets buried in the final, confident output.
The upfront investment in prompt design is the single best preventative measure you can take.
Now for step 2, which is the most vital verification technique you must implement, apply lateral reading.
This technique comes from professional fact-checkers, and it's the perfect parallel to our GPS analogy. It's about checking the actual road signs, not just staring at the screen.
Lateral reading means that when ChatGPT gives you a specific, factual claim, you don't stay inside the AI's environment. You don't ask it for a footnote. You immediately leave the AI, you open new browser tabs, and you verify that claim independently across multiple credible sources.
Why is leaving the AI so important? Can't I just ask it to cite its source?
You can, but that is often just an extension of the hallucination. The AI, in its mission to be fluent and helpful, will often just manufacture a source because that's the statistically likely word sequence to follow a request for a citation.
So you're still trapped in its probability loop.
Exactly. Lateral reading breaks that loop.
Okay, let's do a really detailed walkthrough. Imagine you're working on a healthcare proposal, and ChatGPT gives you this claim. Research by Professor James Smith, published in The Lancet in 2023, found that a 5-minute daily meditation practice increases employee productivity by 47%.
Sounds perfect. It's specific, it's got a source, a novice user copies it.
But the defensive AI user initiates lateral reading.
Action point 1, I stop. I don't touch copy paste. Action point 2, new tab. Google the claim. Professor James Smith Lancet 2023 meditation 47%. Action point 3, I check the results. Does Professor Smith exist? Is she at a real university? Was a paper with that title actually published in the Lancet in 2023? Action point 4, I try to find the original abstract or the paper itself, and if I find it, I read the original conclusion. I never trust the AI's summary of the paper.
That last point is crucial. You have to trace the claim all the way back to its origin.
Yes, because the AI has no author, no reputation to protect. You can't evaluate the source of the claim, only the claim itself. Lateral reading forces you to evaluate the claim against the established credibility of real-world institutions and publications.
And we know this technique works. Studies show that students, after just a short 50-minute training session on lateral reading, got dramatically better at spotting misinformation compared to students who just kept reading deeper into a single, potentially fabricated source.
Lateral reading is also your best defense against the more subtle errors, especially what we call the false precision trap.
Explain that, Track.
The models love to present data with this unnecessary and often fake precision. They might cite 47% when the original study actually reported a range, like 40 to 55%.
Or they'll attribute general findings to a specific person to make it sound more convincing.
Right. These errors are too subtle to trigger suspicion, but they completely destroy your credibility if you publish them. Lateral reading forces you to look at the original source to verify the exact number, the exact context.
And finally, it's our firewall against confirmation bias. If the AI generates that perfect smoking gun statistic that perfectly supports your argument,
That is precisely the moment you must be most skeptical.
because that's when your defenses are at their lowest. You want it to be true, and that desire makes you vulnerable to accepting the plausible lie. Lateral reading ensures your drive for accuracy overrides your drive for affirmation.
All right, moving into the second part of the framework, this is about operational security. Step 3 is the operational mandate. Implement the human-in-the-loop model.
This is just non-negotiable professional conduct, isn't it? Never, ever copy-paste AI output directly for publication, for a client, or for a decision-making process.
Never. The human expert has to be the final filter, the one with veto power.
The AI generates the draft. The human must review it, fact-check it using lateral reading, edit it, and then take full legal and reputational responsibility for the final output. What does the data say about the impact of that human filter?
The data confirms its necessity. In areas like document processing, just requiring a human verification step increases the final accuracy from the model's baseline of roughly 80% to 95% or higher. In any high-stakes environment, legal, medical, financial human review is the critical ingredient that turns AI from a massive liability into a reliable asset.
This brings up a common complaint, though. If I spend as much time verifying and editing as I saved on the writing, where's the actual productivity gain? Am I just shifting work around?
You are absolutely shifting the work. But you are shifting your cognitive effort from low-value tasks to high-value tasks. The benefit isn't just about saving writing time, it's about maximizing the efficiency of your unique human capital, your judgment. Instead of spending hours staring at a blank page, you now spend those hours on critical analysis, on refinement, on challenging assumptions, on adding the nuance that only a human expert can provide.
So you're delegating the high-volume, low-value task of generation to the machine, and you're reserving your most valuable cognitive effort for critical analysis and refinement.
That is the reframing we need. The time you invest in verification is essential because you're guarding against the cost of publishing false information. If the content is flawed, you suffer the consequences. The algorithm doesn't. The human in the loop ensures your professional judgment is the final, non-bypassable quality gate.
Which leads us directly to step 4.
Yeah.
And this is the genuinely uncomfortable reality that requires some radical self-awareness. Recognize the limits of your own expertise.
This is a harsh truth in the age of AI. The system is exponentially more dangerous for a novice user than it is for an expert. If you're an established expert in a field, AI is a wonderful speed tool because you have that internal map, that contextual knowledge, to verify its outputs almost instantly.
But if you're a novice, the AI can confidently lead you completely astray And you won't even realize you're lost until you've driven off the statistical cliff.
The contrast is so clear. A certified tax accountant using ChatGPT to synthesize new regulations benefits greatly because they can check the AI summary against the actual tax code. They'll spot a fabricated form number immediately.
But a layperson using it to file their small business taxes without understanding tax law.
Will likely break the law, relying on a system that might just make up rules and compliance steps. The novice user has no internal mechanism for verification.
So this means if you're using ChatGPT in a domain where you don't have a strong background, your verification standards have to go up exponentially. You have to treat every output with extreme skepticism.
We call this the novice standard. If you lack background knowledge, you have to treat every AI claim as suspect, every citation as unverified, and every statistic as fiction until you prove it's true with multiple independent human-verified sources. And this is essential to counteract a profound danger: the Dunning-Kruger effect combined with generative AI.
Ah, the classic false sense of competence. How does AI amplify that?
The Dunning-Kruger effect is when people with limited competence tend to overestimate their knowledge. AI turbocharges this. It allows the person who knows just enough to be dangerous to generate highly sophisticated, perfectly written, expert-level prose that they are completely unqualified to evaluate for accuracy.
The AI provides the veneer of expertise.
Exactly, leading them to publish expert-level content without having any true expert-level comprehension.
The solution here isn't to avoid AI entirely in those areas, but to use it strictly as a starting point for rigorous research, not as a final authority. Which brings us to the practice of iterative prompting.
Iterative prompting is like adjusting your GPS waypoints in real time. You never accept the first response. Instead, you engage in a sustained Socratic dialogue with the system. You treat it like a colleague you need to push for clarity.
So if the response is too technical, you ask it to explain this to a sophomore in college, or explain this using a sports analogy.
Or if you suspect an error, you don't just delete it, you challenge it directly. I don't think that historical event happened in 1985. Can you re-examine your source material?
This Socratic engagement is actually highly productive.
It is. Research confirms that users who are trained to continually refine their prompts and interact iteratively with the model show substantially better critical thinking skills. They're actively engaging with the output, questioning its logic, and clarifying their own intent.
And it teaches you to think more deeply about your own domain, even as an expert, because you're constantly defending your mental map against the AI's suggestions.
And crucially, it helps you develop pattern recognition for specific AI errors. After challenging the model a dozen times on a niche area, say municipal bond regulations in Ohio, you start noticing where it consistently extrapolates or misinterprets a specific phrase.
You develop an almost intuitive sense for when the directions seem off.
Just like an experienced driver can tell when the GPS is about to suggest a nonsensical route.
Okay, so we've established the mindset and the process. Let's wrap up the functional assessment by detailing when AI truly shines and when its tendency to hallucinate becomes too high a risk.
The fundamental pattern is clear. AI excels at tasks that require pattern matching, high-volume synthesis, and structural manipulation. It falters when the task demands external verification, originality, or subjective human judgment.
If the task is about processing volume or structure, delegate it. If it requires truth or judgment, reserve it for the human.
Exactly.
Let's detail where AI shines, where we can delegate the heavy lifting, as long as we still have that human-in-the-loop review.
Okay, number 1, summarization and extraction. AI is peerless at condensing dense, long-form content. Feed it a 50-page document, it finds the core arguments rapidly. In fact, its performance often gets better with more data.
Number 2, brainstorming and ideation.
If you need 50 different marketing angles or product names, AI can generate them in seconds. The human still has to filter the noise, but the generation speed is just unmatched.
Number 3, formatting and structure.
Yep. Turning rough notes into a formal outline, transforming academic prose into an accessible blog post, or converting data between different formats. It handles structure and style flawlessly.
Number 4, code debugging.
For routine coding tasks, it's a powerful assistant. It can identify logical errors, correct syntax, suggest fixes with accuracy up to 87.5% for common problems.
Number 5, explanation and teaching.
A huge strength, breaking down complex scientific concepts, generating analogies, adapting content for different audiences, explaining something to a high schooler versus a professional.
And 6, pattern identification.
Spotting subtle trends or themes across huge volumes of text or data that would take a human analyst days or weeks to find manually.
Okay, now let's talk about the danger zones. The non-negotiable areas where human oversight is absolutely essential because the AI just falters too often.
First and foremost, as we've said, citations and references. We cannot overstate this.
Error rates from 28% to over 90%.
Never, ever copy an AI-provided citation without doing the lateral reading. The risk of reputational damage is just too high.
Second, rare or specialized knowledge.
This includes niche legal interpretations, very rare medical diagnoses, or specialized academic topics where training data is sparse. In these areas, the model has to guess or extrapolate, leading to much higher error rates that only an expert can spot.
Third, recent events and information.
The model is always limited by its training data cutoff date. If you ask about something that happened this week, it'll either say it doesn't know, or more dangerously, it will try to fill the gap by extrapolating from older patterns. It'll generate a plausible but completely false summary of a current event.
Fourth, complex mathematical reasoning.
It can handle simple arithmetic, but multi-step calculations, especially with probability or geometry, still produce surprising errors. The best practice is to ask the AI to write the formula, then plug the numbers into a trusted calculator yourself.
Fifth, judgment and context.
Ethical dilemmas, moral judgments, or highly nuanced contexts like sarcasm, irony, or cultural references. AI can present different perspectives, but it lacks the experience and moral framework to make the final, contextualized human judgment.
And finally, consistency.
Over long conversations, the model starts to struggle. It can forget details from the start of the chat. The longer the conversation, the more likely a subtle contradiction will creep in.
So the conclusion here is clean and actionable. Use AI to process volume, accelerate drafting, and handle complexity. But keep the core responsibility for accuracy, judgment, and originality firmly in human hands. Always.
And beyond just the mindset, we also need to build an infrastructure of critical AI usage, practical, professional tools and policies that set up clear guardrails.
We formalized lateral reading, but let's formalize the whole verification framework. The SIF method is a great structured approach for that. S, stop. I, investigate the source. F, find better coverage. And T, trace claims back to their original context.
That provides a systematic structure. It prevents you from skipping steps when you're in a rush. We also have to establish verification checkpoints or quality gates before any AI-generated content goes live.
Before you publish, you have to stop and ask yourself 4 critical questions.
Yeah.
1, have I verified every single factual claim and statistic?
2, have I checked every single citation and reference?
3, does this content contradict anything I know for sure from my own expertise? And 4, maybe the most telling question, could I confidently defend this content point by point to a skeptical, qualified expert in this field?
If you can't say a resounding yes to all 4, the content does not get published, period. Another practical tool is personal knowledge management. Keep a simple running list, a note file, or spreadsheet of every significant hallucination you catch the AI making, along with the prompt that caused it.
That's like building your own institutional knowledge of the tool's specific flaws. You start to recognize, for example, that your model always struggles with 17th century historical figures or whatever it might be.
Exactly. You build internal risk intelligence. And for really high-stakes content, like a major client report, you must mandate collaborative verification. Have multiple reviewers, preferably domain experts, check the material. Fresh eyes always catch inconsistencies.
And we should always emphasize documentation. Keeping an audit trail of your prompts and the AI's responses. This is just pure professional due diligence. If an error does slip through, you can trace what went wrong in the process and refine your approach.
This robust infrastructure is essential because we are fighting that underlying psychological trap we talked about earlier, the psychology of superficial fluency.
Right. Let's revisit why AI feels so reliable, even when the data isn't.
It's because the entire system is optimized for coherent, persuasive, flowing text. Confidence flows better than hedging. A hallucinated scientific study, described with perfect academic prose, just sounds more trustworthy to the human brain than a cautious human expert who says, I'm not sure, I need to check the primary sources.
Our cognitive shortcuts tell us that clarity and confidence often equal expertise. But that heuristic breaks down completely when you're dealing with a statistical engine that's been optimized for the appearance of authority, regardless of accuracy.
Therefore, your professional defense must be to presume that plausible-sounding claims from an AI are potentially lies until you prove them true through independent lateral verification. This isn't cynicism, it's realism based on how these models actually work.
And this leads to that trust paradox we discussed. Because the AI is correct 98 or 99% of the time, users gradually lower their guard. They start skipping checks because the last 10 checks confirm the system was right.
Then, when that critical 1 or 2% error finally appears, the made-up citation, the user misses it completely because their verification mechanism has gone dormant. The system's reliability paradoxically makes its rare failures far more dangerous.
We have to acknowledge the future trajectory, though. AI is getting exponentially better very quickly.
Yes. We noted the encouraging stats. Hallucination rates dropped 96% in 4 years. Techniques like retrieval augmented generation, or RA, which lets the AI access real-time external data, can cut errors by as much as 71%. We have models now consistently operating below a 1% error rate.
But, as you rightly said, better is not perfect.
A 0.7% hallucination rate still means regular errors if you're a frequent user. And as these systems get integrated into higher stakes environments, from infrastructure analysis to national security, the cost of that single error goes up exponentially. The stakes are just too high to trust the statistical improvement alone.
And there is the critical economic reality that we at the Urban Herald have to emphasize. The temptation for organizations to automate away that human verification step will increase as the models seem more reliable.
Companies will push to cut costs by eliminating the human in the loop, and that could lead to a massive proliferation of low-cost, error-ridden content polluting the entire information ecosystem.
Our mandate is clear. As the models get better, our professional standards for verification must not drop. They have to improve right alongside the technology. We have to build frameworks that treat human oversight as non-negotiable.
And that brings us back full circle to the fundamental mindset. AI is not an autopilot. It is a powerful co-pilot. It processes data and sees paths you can't, but it absolutely requires your constant contextual attention and judgment.
The users who will succeed and thrive in this new world are the ones who actively embrace this defensive AI framework, verifying before trusting, questioning before accepting, and maintaining the human element, your expertise, your judgment, your ultimate responsibility.
Because those are the qualities a machine fundamentally and definitionally lacks.
The GPS analogy holds up because both tools only truly succeed when the human respects them enough to apply judgment and, when necessary, to override them. Use ChatGPT to augment your capabilities, to accelerate work you understand deeply. But keep your eyes on the road. Learn to recognize the signs, verify the claims, and catch the hallucinations before they damage your reputation or misinform your audience.
The choice about how you integrate this technology is yours, but now you know what using it effectively really means. It means staying engaged in the driver's seat. It means actively taking responsibility for every output that carries your professional name.
And that leaves us with the Urban Herald's final provocation for you to consider. The difference between reaching your destination safely and driving off a statistical cliff is not simply access to the newest, fastest technology. It is the wisdom and the discipline required to use that technology well. As AI systems become integrated into every aspect of our lives, the single greatest, most marketable skill you can possess will be knowing precisely where to draw the line between delegation and surrender.
Thank you for joining the Urban Herald team for this deep dive into safe and effective AI usage. We hope this framework serves you well on your journey.